Welcome back to another Disney Lorcana video. I'm your host, Gage the Mage, and today we're going to be counting down the top 5 steel cards released in Disney Lorcana's The First Chapter. Now, just a quick disclaimer, these are just my opinions. You're welcome to disagree, and please let me know what you disagree with in the comments. I'm more than curious to hear your thoughts. Additionally, I have playtested quite a bit, but that doesn't mean I know everything about the set. That doesn't mean I know all the synergies, and that doesn't mean I've evaluated all the cards properly. So there is a good chance I'm wrong about some of this, and of course this is just my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into the video. At number 5, we have Hans, 13th in line. Number 5 with a hard spot because I feel like Steel has a lot of good and valuable threats, characters, songs, actions, and even items. But I decided on Hans for a number of reasons. For one, the character is pretty fair, and it's a lot of different things very well. For example, it has 3 attack, 3 toughness, it quests for 2, and it has the ability to stage a little accident. Whenever this character quests, you may deal 1 damage to its chosen character. Now, Steel is all about controlling the board, and it's a very anti-aggro color, so being able to do that 1 damage can come in handy quite a bit. It also helps to control the board against aggro decks, like I said, but that's noted here as well. This works well with other cards in the set, but I wouldn't particularly say there's any key cards that this combos really well with. At number 4, we have A Whole New World. A Whole New World, you may have expected it to be higher on this list, and for good reason. It's a very powerful card with a very powerful effect. When sung, it allows you to refill your hand and play a bunch of cards out. Now, by singing, I mean it actually sing with a character rather than just casting it, because it does have a high upside and a low downside, in my opinion, that connects with this, in that if you tap 5 mana to do it, especially if your opponent has a lot of low in cards in hand, you're actually giving them quite a bit of an edge by letting them unexert, and play a bunch of cards. Now, if they have many cards in hand, that's not a problem. And additionally, if you sung the song with one of your characters, it's not much of a problem. But besides that, it ends up being very good in some situations and very bad in others. You want to maximize how good it can be, and it's probably best in a Sapphire Steel ramp deck, because you're able to get out high-cost creatures that are able to sing it. Then you're able to play your high-cost and high-value characters. Sorry, I'm so used to Magic. And the last thing I want to say about this card is more of a downside. It is uninkable, which is quite a problem, especially for something of this size. It makes sense because it has such a powerful effect, but when the card is not always good, you would want to be able to ink it. And this does not have that option. The 2 key cards I chose were Maleficent Uninvited, because she can sing it, and she's a decent enough threat for a Sapphire Steel deck, and Grandma Tala, because Grandma Tala lets you ramp into this very quickly and have more ink than your opponent. With more ink, you can cast more cards, and from there you'll spiral until you win the game. At number 3, we have Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist. Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist may come as a surprise to some and not a surprise to others. It's a great turn 1 play in my opinion, and when my opponent plays it on turn 1, I am very scared, because it can be used early to clear out medium-sized threats as well as low-sized threats on turn 2, 3, 4, because of its Challenger ability. You can also quest with it early game if they decide not to go for anything to allow you to attack into it. They're not going to exert their characters as often when this is on the field, because when it challenges, it's going to challenge for 3, and that's enough to deal quite a bit of damage, if not outright banish characters in the early to mid game. It can also be used as shift with Captain Hook, Thinking a Happy Thought, which is the key card for this. Captain Hook, Thinking a Happy Thought, I don't think is particularly spectacular, but if it's something you're interested in, you're definitely going to be wanting to play Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist, and it definitely helps make this card better. At number 2, we have Grab Your Sword. Now, Grab Your Sword does quite a bit for its value. It is not inkable, and it is also a 5-cost song, but it deals 2 damage to each opposing character. I believe it to be the best anti-aggro card in Steel. The best part about this, though, is that it's asymmetrical, meaning it won't affect your creatures, or something like Be Prepared affects you and your opponent. It allows for a huge tempo swing, because you're able to clear out their small threats, and then use your undamaged characters to attack their threats, clearing their side of the board. Or you can just get rid of their questing cards and then quest yourself. The song is also a song, like I mentioned, and it's singable, making it even more powerful than a regular action would be. The key card I have for this one is Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, because when you play it, it deals 1 damage to each opposing character. Combined with Grab Your Sword, you can do 3 damage to each opposing character, and that's a lot of damage, especially in a game where toughness doesn't get much higher than 4 or 5, and it's usually around 3 or 4. The number 1 best card in Steel is, and I'm sure you guessed it, Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Tinkerbell Giant Fairy is just such a high value card. Not only can you shift into it earlier in the game, but it has 2 wonderful abilities, great stat lines. Rock the Boat, when you play this character, deal 1 damage to each opposing character. Puny Pirate says, during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may deal 2 damage to a chosen opposing character. Now you could argue that this is a better anti-aggro card than Grab Your Sword. I would tend to disagree, but I think what makes this card stand out above it is the fact that it's so flexible. It has a 4/5 stat line and it can quest for 2, and you can shift into it earlier on, whereas Grab Your Sword, you kind of need to be on 5 unless you're playing Sapphire. It's a great control payoff because it does quest for 2, and it manages to clear the board and stabilize yourself when you're in a position where you're behind. The 2 key cards I chose for this were Grab Your Sword, of course, because of the combo I mentioned earlier, and Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician, which was tough not putting on this list because I really liked that card, but I don't think it was strong enough. But obviously, being able to use it in a Tinkerbell deck, you can shift into Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, and that is going to be huge for you, no matter what stage of the game you're in, but especially early on. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment down below your thoughts like I said earlier, and subscribe. It means a lot. This is a new channel. I'm trying to grow it. I make primarily Lorcana and Magic the Gathering content, so if that's something you're interested in, be sure to check out my channel. Until next time, see you later.